Whether you just Googled how to draw yesterday, or you've been drawing your whole life, referencing remains one of the most important and misunderstood parts of the artistic process. Let's look at how you can use references to improve your art regardless of your skill level, and see just how deep the referencing rabbit hole goes. Welcome to The Forge. I'm the Fox. The name's Brandon, and for the sake of simplicity, I have divided up this video into time-stamped sections for each skill level. Despite that, even if you're a total beginner, I'd highly recommend sticking around for the advanced sections. It can be useful to familiarize yourself with more challenging methods of referencing, even if you aren't ready to dive into them just yet. To be honest, the last few levels still intimidate me, and I've been drawing for over a decade. However, if you want to skip to the section that best suits your skill level and be on your merry way, I won't stop you. Let's begin with
Level 1, Tracing.
Whoa. I came here to reference, not to trace. I'm not some tracing fiend. Well, rest assured, this is likely not the tracing you're thinking of. When tracing to learn, you aren't directly tracing the lines of an image. You're looking for the shapes underneath. And I'm not going to be like the math teacher we've all had that says, "Do it this way because it's right," either. I'm going to explain exactly what this, and every subsequent method, is supposed to teach us. Here is a comparison between line tracing and shape tracing. When you trace the lines exactly, like on the left, you aren't building a mental understanding of how that image is constructed. You might be learning how to improve your line work slightly, but we can do better. The image on the right ignores the outline and focuses on the fundamental shapes that make up that image. You know all those cube drawing exercises that went viral? This is where that sort of skill can come in handy. Now, I could make a whole video explaining how and why I picked each shape here, and I just might. But generally, you don't have to be perfect about this starting out. The goal with level 1 is to train your brain to see the underlying shapes within each image so it's easier for you to construct 3D images on a page. This is going to be an incredibly useful skill as you progress, and once you feel like you've gotten comfortable finding those shapes, you can move on to
Level 2, the Grid.
This is a reference grid. It's relatively simple to set up and is an amazing tool for early artistic progression. Taking on a full reference image as a beginner can be very daunting. There are so many things to consider and observe that it can be challenging to know what to focus on. The grid helps us focus by breaking up our reference image and our canvas into identical grids. We go from focusing on this to focusing on just this. In the description, I have links to transparent landscape, portrait, and square grids so you don't have to fuss with setup and you can get started right away. Unless you're working traditionally, in which case, grab a ruler. Making sure that your reference grid is directly next to your canvas and is appropriately scaled, go from box to box and do your best to draw whatever you see in the corresponding box on your reference image. This method focuses on teaching us one of the most important skills in using references, which is spatial observation. How big is the gap here? How far is this line from that line? What angle is this line actually at? Once you get a feel for answering some of those questions, you can graduate to
Level 3, the Side-by-Side.
Imagine the grid. Okay, now take away the grid. That's the side-by-side. It may seem like a small step up, but I can assure you that this can be a lot harder than it looks. So if you're struggling when you start out, then congratulations. The struggle means you're learning. Failure is necessary for any kind of success in any skill. Celebrate failures, especially if you're trying very hard, as they are evidence that you are meaningfully interfacing with real challenge. If you are struggling and failing to make it look right, then you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you should be doing. One trick that can make this leap in difficulty more manageable is observing the negative space. See that? That's negative space.
Life is pain.
No, not that kind of negative. I'm talking about the space outside of the character. we can use the gaps, edges, and curves around a character to help us gauge things like distance between 2 points. Like here. It can be easier to gauge the correct shape of the chest and arm when looking at the negative space rather than the form itself. Once you feel like your understanding of negative space and spatial relationships has improved doing side-by-sides, you can begin
Level 4, Drawing from Life.
This one's deceptively simple. Just look at something and try to draw it. Simple in concept, much harder in execution. With your reference literally no longer by your side, you have to rely on your mind's eye to gauge the spaces between any 2 parts of a reference. For this level, don't focus on perfect accuracy, just try your best to recreate what's around you and enjoy the process. This can be drawing characters you like, drawing the Statue of David, drawing your living room, the sky's the limit. This is a very fun and open-ended step where you get a lot of freedom as an artist. I'd recommend being as creative as possible with what you reference and really focus on drawing stuff that interests you. If you pick subjects that feel artsy but aren't interesting, the burnout will be inevitable. Here's an example of a drawing I did while waiting for a friend to finish getting his tattoo. I often return to this level of referencing with traditional art as I find drawing my surroundings to be a therapeutic and relaxing way to pass the time. Oh, that's important to mention. There's nothing stopping you from going back a level if you're having trouble or looking to chill. Try not to force yourself into only doing what's hardest. Finding a balance between comfortable, familiar levels of referencing and challenging difficult ones will help prevent burnout as you improve. When we talk about the last levels, you'll see just how much I personally jump around, and I highly recommend doing the same. You're not always going to be ready to attempt the hardest thing you've ever done, and it's much better to draw something simple rather than being frozen in art paralysis. Now that being said, if you want to push your art even further, you can progress
to Level 5, the first one-to-one.
A fair warning to all of you. This next level is probably the biggest jump in difficulty between any 2 levels on this list. That being said, one-to-ones are going to test everything you've learned so far and push your artistic eye to the limit. The goal here is to perfectly recreate an image to the best of your ability. What I personally recommend is find an animated show that you enjoy watching and pause once an episode on a frame with particularly cool art. From that paused frame, do your best to recreate the exact visuals. Draw with the screenshot on a monitor or TV, and do not have the reference directly next to your canvas like in a side-by-side. If you're on a computer, the snipping tool for Windows makes this very quick and easy. If you're on a mobile phone or tablet, you can take a screenshot. If you're watching on TV, you can either pause or just take a photo of the screen. Once you're done with the attempt, overlay the reference over the drawing to see how well you did. Now make sure only to overlay when you're done drawing completely, because otherwise it kind of defeats the whole purpose of having your reference be off your canvas. When I first started doing one-to-ones, I was insanely disheartened by how difficult they were and how even little mistakes made a huge difference in result. However, after a lot of Naruto episodes, I was finally able to get a few that were nearly perfect recreations of the screenshot. In my personal opinion, I do not see enough people attempting true one-to-ones. I can speak from personal experience that my artistic eye was honed incredibly quickly by forcing myself to focus on extreme micro details. Once you feel accustomed to doing one-to-ones, if you're seeking an even greater challenge, then you can take on
Level 6, the Dark Souls of one-to-ones.
The reason I recommended using an animated show as reference in Level 5 is because Level 6 is going to focus entirely on realism. Same exact process, take any image of a person or place from real life and attempt to recreate it one-to-one. I have a confession. I have never successfully completed a realism one-to-one. This is the level I go to when I truly want to push my limits. Here are my 2 best attempts. I may like them as art pieces, but as you can see, they are not perfect recreations of their original reference. Something worth noticing is that if you are also trying to color and render your one-to-one, it is going to be nearly impossible. The difficulty of this level is truly limitless, and if someone were to theoretically master this level of referencing, they would effectively become a human camera. But wait, the video's not over. Isn't recreating any image perfectly from reference the highest you can go?
Level 7, Beyond the One-to-One.
Level 6 may seem like the end of the line, but really it just opens the door to an entirely new world. What if we could combine any 2 or more references and still have the image read as if it was meant to be that way? Now, I'm sure a lot of you have done this before. You want to draw a character, you want to draw a pose, but there are no reference images for that character in that pose, so you do something like this. This is level 7, the ability to take 2 references and combine them into something new. This is something that almost every artist at every level does from time to time, so why is it ranked above perfect realistic recreation? I placed it here because the theoretical ceiling for this skill is even higher than the ceiling for a perfect one-to-one. In theory, if you were able to master this skill, you'd be able to take, morph, and apply reference images together and get the exact result you wanted every time. Personally, I don't think anyone has ever attained mastery of this level. Even if someone theoretically made the perfect image from a large set of references, I am fairly certain that no one has ever been 100% consistent in doing so. This is worth noting because it represents the current human limit. Level 7 and beyond is frontier territory, and as we all fight hard to tackle this monumental task, it's important to keep in mind that no person has ever mastered these skills. Because of this, I try to focus on celebrating my efforts and failures rather than my success, as I know that meaningfully attempting this level will improve me as an artist, even if the result isn't what I wanted. But wait, go back a second. Did you just say beyond level 7?
Level... The infinite power of the mind.
What if you want to draw something that doesn't exist at all? Something you can visualize in your mind that you've never seen before in any show, any movie, or even in life. Something that has no existing references. A lot of artists that draw things such as this forego references entirely, choosing instead to draw upon their visualization and mental library. But you can also use references, and this level of referencing is truly unmasterable. To explain how, we need to take a trip all the way back to level 1. Remember those underlying shapes that make up a form? Well, even if you're drawing something that doesn't exist, you can take the underlying shapes of what you imagine in your mind and search for references that share similar shape language. Then you can reference the concept drawings to iterate your design to get it closer and closer to what you imagined in your mind. The true beauty of this technique is that you can accidentally discover something that was even better than your original idea. It just requires a lot of determination and passion. Let's take my character Zinna, for example. When I first thought of her, I had such a distinct vision of what she looked like. But when I put pen to paper, I was disappointed. So I studied birds, thought of how she looked, and tried again. But I wasn't satisfied there. There was more my mind saw that wasn't on the page yet, so I studied harpies and tried iterating again. Despite feeling marginally closer, I am still not happy with the way she looks today. I'd get deeper into that process, but I have an entire video planned on character design, so I'll leave it at that for now. This is the infinite power of the mind. You have an idea, you gather references you think will help, make an attempt, and if it's not what you wanted, you try again. I cannot stress that there is not a limit to this level. Theoretically, a true master of this level could effectively do one-to-ones of anything their mind imagined with lossless quality on their first attempt. No one has ever done this, and no one ever will. However, I think that's what makes the infinite power of the mind so beautiful. You can always take things just one step further, and you can tread where no one has ever tread before. If you've stuck around this long, consider subscribing and liking the video so I can create more in-depth guides such as this. Your support not only helps me grow, but helps other artists find the resources they need to grow and learn as well. In totality, each and every level here is building your spatial and visual instincts so that you can eventually attempt to draw anything you want as effectively as possible. It may seem counterintuitive to draw things that already exist, to get better at drawing things from your imagination, but if you truly want to improve as a visual artist, it is imperative you develop these skills. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun at the same time. Draw what interests you. Draw your favorite characters, places, animals, anything that brings you joy. And hey, if you burn out on referencing, then stop. Draw straight from the dome as long as you like. I know that I've burnt out on reference drawing many times, but I encourage you to keep coming back to it, if only little by little, because I think you'll amaze yourself with how much you're truly capable of creating and growing.